You didn't show me a thumb? Good evening and welcome to the Administration Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, February 4th. We have Trustee Thomas and Trustee Paula D'Amato Giovinazzi virtual. And we have regrets from Trustee Ria Corbett and Trustee Herman Valoria. We all stand for the opening prayer and continue standing for the land acknowledgement.
We begin with the sign of our faith in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Grant to us, O God, a vision of your world as your love would have it. A world where the weak are protected and none go hungry or poor. A world where the rich of creation are honored and shared so everyone might enjoy them. A world where different races, cultures, and creeds live in peace and harmony with equal regard. A world where peace is built with justice and justice is guided by love. Give us the inspiration and courage to go forth with willing hearts, minds, and bodies to build such a world through Christ Jesus. May the God of hope fill us with every comfort and joy in believing. May the peace of Christ abound in our hearts and minds, and may the Holy Spirit gift to guide us now and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father.
Like our faith, the land is rich in history and in mystery. The mystery is both our shared traditions and our shared challenge. Work humbly to learn about and from one another in the world around us. The land has quite literally seen it all, and physically and metaphorically is a silent and ever-present reminder of the past and present glories, and past and present norming, exhorting us always to action. Together with the land on which, of which the Michisagi of the Credit, our treaty partners, have been stewards for generations. We must commit to beauty and peace, and fight injustice, and actively, passionately, resolutely create a future with hope. Approval of the agenda. Approved by Trustee Stefano Pascucci. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Construction report coming now.
So through the chair, it's one of the calendar items. Also, just to reference the TOPE sheet, that there's a correction to the title of the agenda, at the location, and also we will not be having a delegate.
There's no delegation.
So as part of the approval of the agenda, we have the construction status report, and should any trustees have any questions on the construction status report, the team is here to answer.
Do you have any questions on the construction report? Seeing none, do we have any declaration of interest tonight? None. Approval of the minutes of the Administration and Finance Committee meeting of November 12th, 2024. Business arising from the minutes are attached.
Through the chair, we require approval.
One to approve. Trustee Sean Xavier. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Proposed terms of references for 2025, Associate Director Del Bianco.
Thank you. Good evening, and through the chair, as we do every year at this time, we bring forward the proposed terms of reference for the Administration and Finance Committee for the 2025 calendar year. The terms of reference are there for your review on page 24 of the agenda. Nothing has changed aside from the names of the committee chair, vice chair, as well as the student trustees. And as always, and I know it's come up in the past, but as always, we make reference that while this is the Administration and Finance Committee meeting, other items and discussion can occur. I believe that's the last point in that terms of reference.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak for a second? Thank you. To this point regarding our committee, is there any way before the next meeting, when we reorganize in the fall, we just put a brief survey out to every trustee out here to see if there's anything else they would like to add? I know what you said a moment ago. We can bring other things in as we require. Just a chance to do some reflection for the next committee, which will happen in November, later on this year, December.
Absolutely. Through the chair, when we prepare the terms of reference, which will probably be this time next year, 2026, which is,
I know.
prior to that happening, we can survey
Just a survey, and
trustees.
it'd be a private survey between the trustees themselves individually. It gives us an opportunity, because I know we're turning it over and over, but things have changed somewhat, and I'm thinking sometimes we've been into it for too long in those terms, but just to get a chance to reflection.
Absolutely. We can make sure it accurately reflects what the committee would like to see
Not
us.
only this committee, maybe the other committees as well. Thank you.
So through the chair, we're looking for approval of the terms of reference.
Moved by trustee Mario Pascucci. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. We have no awards and presentations, no delegations. In section E, reports from trustees for receipt. We have an Oxstar report? No?
No, no report as of now, Mr. Chairman. We have our board meeting coming up shortly, and we'll provide an update afterwards.
Thank you. Do we have any good news items? Student trustee Jia Sharma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring up that this Thursday is National Sweater Day, and our board is going to be celebrating that. And all the schools for eco, just for the earth, they're going to be bringing down the temperature by about 1 degrees or 1.5 degrees, and then all students are encouraged to wear like a warm sweater with their uniform pants and all black shoes. And I think it's really exciting. That's my good news.
Thank you, student trustee Sharma. Any other good news items? Seeing none, we move to reports from committee administration for receipt. First one being receipt of the Stopper Governance Committee meeting, June 21st, 2024. Acting Superintendent.
So through the chair, the minutes are there for receipt. If there's any questions on any of the sets of minutes, there's 3 of them. Myself or Superintendent Mariah are here to address any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for June 21st minutes? Seeing none, are there any questions for the September 25th minutes? Seeing none, are there any questions for the November 21st minutes? Thank you. Lakeview Podium School Site Identification. Acting Superintendent Mariah.
Good evening. Through the chair, that report is now going to be presented by the manager of planning, Stephanie Cox.
Thank you. Through the chair, the report will actually be presented to by Joanne Rogers.
All right.
Excuse, it's like a little.
Musical man.
We like to keep you on your toes. Thank you, Richard and Steph. Good evening, and through the chair. The report before you identifies an elementary school site in a podium of a condominium building in the development of Lakeview Village in South Mississauga. The Lakeview Village community is being developed on a 177-acre site that was formerly the Ontario Power Generation lands and has been through an extensive planning process. In 2021, Mississauga City Council approved 8,050 units to be developed here. However, in May of 2023, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing granted a Minister's Zoning Order, or an MZO, that increased the number of permitted residential units from 8,050 to 16,000 residential units. Initially, when this development application was circulated to commenting agencies with 8,050 units, planning staff had advised that students from this development could be accommodated at Queen of Heaven Catholic Elementary School and St. Paul Catholic Secondary School. However, as a result of the MZO doubling the number of permitted units to 16,000, planning staff reevaluated the accommodation needs in the area and determined that a school site may be required to accommodate future elementary students from this development. Planning staff have identified a podium school within Block 8 of the Lakeview Village subdivision plan as shown on Appendix A of this report. A podium school refers to a school that is integrated into the podium or lower levels of a condominium building. The developer has committed to approximately 40,000 square feet of GFA and 2 acres of outdoor play space. This would allow for a 363 pupil place elementary school to be constructed. Dufferin Peel will have the option to proceed with the podium school for 5 years following the date that 7,000 residential units have been built and occupied. As a result of the Lakeview Village development, enrollment is projected to increase beyond the capacity of Queen of Heaven Elementary School and St. Paul Catholic Secondary School, as illustrated in the charts on pages 38 and 39. Planning staff will continue to monitor enrollment and development in this area to determine when and if the podium school will be required. That concludes this report. Manager Cox and I are available to answer any questions trustees may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Trustee Stefano Pascucci?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So a podium school would have all the amenities as a regular school, gymnasium, anything else?
Through the chair, that's correct. It would include a gymnasium, all of the special rooms, classrooms, science rooms, library, as a regular school would have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Mario Pascucci?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question I've asked to staff. How much information can we get from the city at this point regarding that area? How worthwhile is the information now? Is it still too early?
Through the chair, construction actually has started on some of the development in that community, but it's still going to be a long way out before we see, I guess, a number of students in that community. So the land is now being graded, services are being installed, and then they will shortly start construction on some of the towers.
And second question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, how do you intend to mention it or introduce it to the communities in that area? Sorry, the current communities in that area, because there's going to be a lot of commentary, let's say, why we're putting a school here and all that kind of stuff. How are we going to sort of bring it into plan? I don't expect something in the next couple of weeks, of course, or the next couple of years, but when would be an ideal time to present it?
So through the chair, at this point in time, we're just reserving the option to build the school in case it's required. So once they get to 7,000 units, we'll be able to identify whether or not we need a school in that area. And then at that time, we would start that communication going forward.
Question, maybe?
So go ahead.
Yes, thank you for that. Question I have to ask here is regarding what's happening right now and how it's going to play into this. When we're currently looking at St. Edmunds, some of St. Edmunds children going to St. Vincent, or St. Alfred's, and then the backfill after that with Queen of Heaven and St. Dominic's and what have you. Is that going to be part and parcel of the conversation?
So through the chair, the St. Edmund issue is a separate issue because those
Yes,
students are actually north of the QEW.
Yes.
And then the students south of the QEW. Once we see what starts coming out of that development, then we'll do a further assessment.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pascucci. I have Trustee Sean Xavier, followed by Trustee Bruno Indi.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to staff. Thank you for the presentation. Do we know if the public board has, because I know for a fact the Dufferin Peel doesn't have a podium school. do we know if the Peel District School Board has a podium school?
Through the chair, I don't believe that they do have a podium school, and they, in this particular development, the developers have agreed to a very tiny site for their elementary school.
For
So
the- For the public board?
for the public board, but through the chair, that they will definitely be requiring that site based on the enrollments they currently have in that community. But because Dufferin Peel, we're not sure if we're going to need that particular school. That's why we've negotiated with the developers to reserve space in a podium in the event we require it.
Oh, no, it's a very, through you, Mr. Chairman, it is a very neat idea or thing that moves forward. I just wanted to know, do we know any other board that has I just wanted to see like what it's like. Do we know any other boards with a podium school?
Through the chair, Toronto Board, I believe they have two now, if I'm not mistaken. One for sure.
One and one in the process.
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, they do have one Canoe Landing, which most of you would be aware of. You can actually see it off the QEW. And then there is another one, I believe in the Portlands, in that area? Yeah, yeah. So they do have one in the works as well.
Perfect, thank you, and Associate Director.
Through the chair, as more and more of these high-density towers come into play, the idea that we could reserve a 6-acre block, which could be the entire development, is not the way of kind of the future. We'll still be building schools on 6-acre lands, but when you're in such a highly dense area and they build up, the towers and the podium schools, you'll see more and more of them, not just in Mississauga, but scattered all through the GTA.
Perfect. No, thank you very much to staff. I look forward to kind of seeing how this grows and evolves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Mario Pascucci to this
Yeah,
point.
to this point specifically, I believe there's a school at, I think it's Toronto Catholic, at, just be near the St. Lawrence Market. Is that the one you're referring to?
Through the chair, Canoe Landing is the public and Catholic. Yeah, it's a public, correct. It's a joint use with both school boards and the municipal or the City of Toronto. But it's not the one at St. Lawrence Market. That's not the one I was referring to.
Okay, great, thank you.
Trustee Bruno Anika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 39, where it has the enrollment of St. Paul, I know that the enrollment is increased significantly because of the hard work that Trustee Pascucci and I did. It wasn't because of who was there at the time. If the truth be told, it's the exact opposite. But what would the plan be for the students of St. Paul? Like, I see the plan for the podium school. Is that elementary and secondary, or is it just elementary, or is it both?
Through the chair, it's just an elementary school.
Just, yeah, so, okay, that's what the report says. So I'm wondering if the population in 2024, well, we're in 25 now, is far exceeding the capacity of 800. What's in store for the school, St. Paul?
So through the chair, St. Paul also includes the remote students. So they're included in that enrollment as well as the IB. So if it got to a point where we couldn't put additional portables on the site, we couldn't look at an addition, then we would look at changing some boundaries between some of the schools that do have availability.
Say that again, please.
Through the chair, if there is no room to accommodate, if we see that the enrollment growth is such that we're not going to be able to accommodate the students in portables, we could ask for funding to build another addition if possible. If that's not an option, then we could also look at reviewing secondary school boundaries. It would be a larger review though, of course, because we know that St. Martin's is quite full as well.
Well, I mean, St. Martin's is at capacity and above capacity right now. St. Paul is above capacity right now. If that's the case, my preference would be not to, I mean, where are you going to put some of those kids? They're in that area. Like St. Timothy's is right there. Queen of Heaven is right there.
Yeah.
I mean, all the feeder schools are
Yeah.
there. They're within, you know, like, how do you change? I mean, I know it's early, but I mean, this is a good news story from an enrollment perspective for both schools, and the Podium School, but, you know, I could understand moving the remote because regardless of where you put the remote, they can work from a remote, so it doesn't much matter. But my recollection is that population is about 120, 140 approximately. Staff know?
Through the chair, it's 133, and that's correct. We would look at moving programs as well.
Okay, so, but you wouldn't look at moving the IB because that's the catchment for the IB.
Through the chair, we would have that larger discussion with the trustees for the area and the superintendent. If that was the case, if we got to a point where we were in need of accommodating students coming out of that development.
How long before staff, and I read somewhere in here that it was 7,000, once you get to 5,000 or 7,000 students, that's when you kind of.
Through the chair, once we get to 7,000 units,
Sorry,
yes.
units.
We'll continue to monitor on an annual basis as development occurs, how many students we're getting out of those units. We also have to keep in mind those units are going to be very small units. We anticipate a lot of them being one bedroom. We don't anticipate a large number of units that are going to be able to accommodate families.
Planning staff has done this and projections for as long as I've been here, which is sometimes, it's been a long time. And usually plant staff comes up with the numbers, and I have to say they're relatively close. They're not perfect, but they're close. I mean, because I look at the numbers that is presented. What does staff believe projections will be from this development? Based on what you know. I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, because if you did, I'd ask you for the lotto numbers. But, you know, what does staff believe those numbers could be?
So through the chair, when we did our analysis of the student yield from these 16,000 units, we actually did two yields. We did a calculation based on a higher yield and one that was a little more conservative. So at the conservative end, we're projecting about 265 elementary students and 222 secondary students. On the higher end, we are projecting 640 elementary students and 320 secondary students.
I know we're looking at future. I get it. I understand it. Would it be, I guess I can ask the question when we have the conversation, because I would be looking hopefully to have a addition added on to St. Paul for the 320 kids, which is a fair number of kids, or the 222. Because I'm trying to figure out, I haven't been to the back of that school in a bit, so I really can't lay it out in my own mind. But for me, 222 kids and 320, the delta's at like 100 for the most part. I don't know about Mario, but my preference would be if they're gonna be there and continue to be there, you know, if it's a one and done, then we're gonna have a school that even if you built it for 250, you're gonna have a school built for 1,050, and you're gonna have accommodations for, or a number of kids for the first 5, 6, 10 years of that amount, and then you're gonna have an empty school like we have in some of our secondary schools, which personally don't like the idea of an empty any school for that matter. So, I mean, when I guess when the time comes, we'll have to have that conversation, because my preference would be build as opposed to, I mean, the IB, not the IB, but the remote, it doesn't matter where they are. It's just the teachers. And my understanding, in speaking to the admin staff, the teachers don't have rooms to work in the way that maybe we should or shouldn't. I don't know what that scenario would be, but I can tell you, that would be an easy move of 130 kids. So now you've gone from whatever that number is, in 20, you're almost, I mean, be it in 2028, you'd be at just about 1,100 kids.
Through the chair, if I can, I think as Manager Cox pointed out, look, I think we're all a little too early on the discussion. I think just a reminder that if we're going to go down the road of an addition, it's a capital priority and completely at the mercy of the ministry. The best thing and unfortunately, the ministry is going to require students in seats before they approve any addition. So we know that's how it works, but if we look like we're marching down that path, then it's a discussion that we have sooner rather than later to either put it on the ministry's radar. They'll say, do you have temporary accommodation? Have you maxed out temporary accommodation? Are there other options to accommodate students elsewhere? We'll explore those. And then if we go down the path of a capital priority, we bring it here for approval. There's a business case attached to it saying St. Martin's is full, this building or this development is feeding students into St. Paul, enrollment's going up, we require an addition depending on the site size, and then we leave it to the ministry. But I think the best thing that we can do collectively is, whether it's part of the annual enrollment projections or just regular touch base, to share what enrollment's trending, which way enrollment's trending. Is it trending in line with projections? Is development going the way they say it's going? And then at some point, call everyone together and start planning.
I mean, we're going to be, Mario and I are going to be at St. Paul next week. This week. I mean, you got to give them a heads up. I mean, for years and years, Mario and I have gone there, and the community said, well, the school's going to close. And bless you. And my response, and Mario's response was, that we're the trustees. We haven't heard that ever. And so, now it's the other challenge, the better challenge that we have, where we have more students than, in some cases, pupil places, which is a wonderful thing. Yes, 133 are remote, but you take 133 from whatever the projection, like right now, you're at least, based on these numbers here, 25,000. So you're over capacity by 70 today. That's without the development, based on the graph.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, once the first tower goes up, we can definitely report back to trustees and let them know what kind of numbers we're getting out of that. So I think that'll give us a good indication of, how we have to start planning for future enrollment at St. Paul. So we'll see what type of units they're building and the number of students that are coming out of these towers. So then we can report back and share that with trustees. So then everybody has an idea of which way we're going.
That way, when you guys report back, we can, have some further dates to our community. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to staff.
Thank you. See, no more questions. We have one more. Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To staff, right now, St. Dominic's, I'm not sure, I think they have 1 or 2 shuttered classrooms. Queen of Heaven has 3 or 4, and St. James doesn't. The fact is that the question I have to ask is that transition, do you see maybe using those shuttered classrooms?
Through the chair, definitely, as enrollment increases, we'll definitely be unshuttering those rooms.
Great. Have you spoken to, or you plan to speak to the counselor number 1, and also the MPP in the area down the road, or are we doing it in working with their respective entities, the government and city of Mississauga.
Through the chair, so we've been working with the city planner through this entire process, while we've been working with the developer to ensure that we can reserve the site. So we can only assume that the city planner has been updating council and their appropriate staff.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is it possible to set a meeting time, not in the immediate future, because as things still are moving along, into meeting with the ministry personnel at that time, if that's appropriate, and definitely if we want to meet with the MPP in the area, that might be appropriate. Can you see that happening in the next little while, like a year or so?
Through the chair, I think it would be best for us to see what type of, the number of students, once again, that we're getting out of the development, and then we can certainly make that happen.
And something's happened this week, actually today, and Superintendent Drago was involved with it, and they invited me there regarding the St. James Lottery. And through you, I know this is St. James, it'll address the issue regarding also the population in that area. We keep that in mind in the background. St. James is as an entity in itself as a IB school, but the ramifications might have on St. James and school, whatever you want to call it, making sure they're both going to be viable, continue to be viable. I expect them to be, but continue to be both viable.
Through the chair, that would definitely be part of our analysis.
Last question, sir, Madam, Mr. Chair, is the idea of reminding the priest in the area of what's happening, keep them in the fold on this one as well, so that this way they understand what's happening with the community and what we're doing as Dufferin Peel. Is it possible to put them on the list at the appropriate time? I'm talking the archdiocese or the local priests.
Through the chair, definitely.
Thank you. Chairman, thank you, staff.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for this report? Seeing none, next order of business is Mount Pleasant Number 2 Catholic Elementary School, permanent and host boundaries. Acting Superintendent Mariah.
Through the chair. As trustees are aware, the construction of the Mount Pleasant Number 2 Catholic Elementary site is currently underway. The school is scheduled to be completed and open for September 2025. In this regard, the establishment of a permanent boundary is required for this school. In addition to the permanent boundary, a host boundary will also be established to accommodate future development from Heritage Heights to the west and Mayfield to the north. Mount Pleasant Number 2 Elementary is located on Robert Parkinson Drive in the city of Brampton, which is north of St. Daniel Comboni Elementary School, where the majority of students in the new boundary are currently attending. There are also 2 families located within the host boundary currently attending St. Aidan Catholic Elementary School. The Mount Pleasant Number 2 boundary is illustrated on page 45 of the report. The pink area outlined will make up the permanent boundary, while the yellow area consists of the host boundary. There are no proposed changes to the secondary school boundary for this area. Students from the new permanent and host boundaries for Mount Pleasant Number 2 will continue to be directed to St. Edmund Campion Secondary School. On January 22nd, a community open house was held for all parents and guardians residing within the proposed new permanent boundary and host boundaries for Mount Pleasant Number 2. Approximately 50 people attended to review the material presented and to ask questions. Overall, staff received positive feedback, with the majority of the questions focused on busing, childcare, and bell times. Staff have also consulted with the local trustee and the family of school superintendent to confirm the proposed new boundaries. Students residing in the new boundary will be directed to the new school in September when it opens. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions for this report? Seeing none. Next order of business is the interim financial report as at 31st December 2024. Executive Superintendent Cherapac.
Through the chair, it's actually Superintendent Keys. Just keep everybody guessing tonight. That's what we're trying to do.
No.
Thank you, and through the chair. Tonight, I'm presenting our interim financial report for the 4-month period, September 1st to December 31st, 2024. This report starts on page 46 of the agenda package. The report measures our actual results against our budget, which is the revised estimates information shared at the December board meeting. Not much has changed since that report, and we continue to project a compliance deficit of 38.8 million for the 2024-2025 school year. This deficit is primarily impacted by the employer-funded long-term disability plan, which has an estimated cost of 27.7 million for this year. Additional cost pressures to Dufferin Peel continue to include the unfunded portions of the Canada Pension Plan, which includes the regular CPP and the enhanced program, which is the new program that started in 2024, and employment insurance. In addition to the transportation grant, as well as investment needs such as technology, cybersecurity, and curriculum needs. The report includes 3 different areas: financial, enrollment, and staffing. And I will provide highlights of each. On page 49, you will see a summary of each of these areas. Our target or benchmark for spend at this time of year would be about 33.3%. As at December 31st, our total actual operating expenses are about 31.2% of the annual budget. However, if you exclude items booked at year end, the spend is closer to the target of 33.3%. On page 48, further details are provided for the various expense categories, and some are a little ahead of our target, like textbooks, classroom computers, school office, and board admin. Many of these areas have expenses that happen earlier on in the year, such as consumables and other supplies that will be used throughout the year, in addition to licenses, subscriptions, and our insurance premiums. There is also a reallocation to our computers line for the new technology rollout plan that you're all made aware of a couple of months ago. I also want to highlight the ECE line, which has seen an increase due to the higher number of staff on short-term leaves and a slightly higher retro payment than previously estimated. The middle section on page 49 shows the in-year change in enrollment from the original projections back in June to the revised estimates reporting in December. We experienced an enrollment decline of about 83 average daily enrollment, and although the in-year decline is small, we continue to experience year-over-year enrollment declines, but of course at a smaller rate than seen in the past. The last section on page 49 also shows the in-year changes in staffing from the original estimates to revise and ties to staffing needs across the system from enrollment changes and student and other operational needs. Expenditures are progressing well against revised, and finance will continue to monitor these expenses against budget and will report again in the next 4-month period in April 2025. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for this report? Trustee Del Rosero?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report, the updated report. So as of the end of December, our deficit is 38.8, right? So what is our cumulative deficit? Is still 90-something?
Through the chair, so the 38.8 is our projected at year end. So we are on target for that. Our accumulated deficit would remain the same. I don't have it in front of me, but about 90.
So through the chair, just to add in addition, we finished the year end with an approximate deficit position of 60 million. And so we add an accumulated 38.8 and we'd have an accumulated deficit close to 100 million.
And I don't know if you could answer this through the chair. Could you give us an update on how LTD claims, and is it going down? Is it the way it is or getting worse?
Through the chair, I don't have actual detail about claims. What we do have is a lot of work that's happened on the transition process to move our one group over to new plan provider. And I think we're trending the same as we have, but I don't have that detail. That could be something we could try to get information on and share. What I can tell you is the transition is going well. And it was effective the beginning of this fiscal year, and staff continue to work, because there's a lot of work on the administrative side of that, to get the plans in place, get the programs in place, get the information out to staff and move forward. So in a good spot right now, but still a lot to keep doing.
Thank you. Just a follow-up to that one, through the chair. Would it be possible for us to get a report in the future, once it's all settled with the transition, on how the claims have gone? Because normally what happened when you change and transition, a new provider comes in, the review of all those claims will happen. And some of those claims may be reassessed, some of those claims may be paid out, because depending on the situation, when an LTD claim is, and the situation is this person is not going to improve, some carriers do buy them out. So there's a portion of that. So I just want to have a better feel on how they're reviewing this. And are there any possibilities for the return to work? Are they reviewing the return to work of all of these employees?
Through the chair, we can look to bring something forward. What I will share is when we transition from one provider to another, there's a cutoff date. So up to a certain point, all the claims remain with our previous provider, and they manage those claims. So really, when we transition to a new provider, it's just who then is new into the program with that provider.
So in that case, to the chair, do we still get reports from the previous provider?
Through the chair, yes.
So those are the things that we also need to determine where it's going. So if you could, maybe sometime, get just a summary on how it's coming along. Because I know they sometimes buy them out, they sometimes really review them and say, half of them have now gone to a modified work or have been bought out.
Through the chair, we'll look to see what we can put together.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Del Rosario. I have Trustee Sean Xavier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to staff. I just need some help jogging my memory. When did we start being in a deficit? Being in a deficit.
Through the chair, I'll work my memory here. There was a time, so this major deficit and use of accumulated surplus was the end of the 2019-20 year. And then we moved forward into multi-year financial recovery reporting and working under that plan with the ministry. But even prior to that, Dufferin Peel was experiencing small deficits whereby we were able to use accumulated surplus to offset. The ministry had a reporting mechanism where you could have a deficit in year as long as it was within 1% of accumulated surplus. So for a number of years prior to that, we would balance using accumulated surplus and then find a path forward. So we would work throughout the year to find a plan to balance before moving into the next financial year. So I would say some type of deficit we've been experiencing since at least 2016. That's a guess in the dark. But prior to that, we actually did have a number of years of accumulated surplus reporting.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman. So just taking a step like further, so 2019, 2020 was when we actually started reporting a deficit for the board and going into the multi-year financial recovery model with the ministry. So since 2019, the ministry has known, or I guess 2020, the ministry has known we've been in this position. What has been done by the ministry to support us?
Through the chair, I'd like to actually first start by saying we brought this information forward to the ministry a number of times, even before 2019-20. I know you've heard our director mention that there was one time we went down to the ministry to point this out to them. which really dates back to probably almost 2014 or earlier. In working with the ministry in the last few years, there was a lot of work done up front just so that they were comfortable knowing that LTD was our problem. So we had some reporting, we had investigations, we had a lot of work we did with them so that they were in a position to really understand the unique nature of our deficit here at Dufferin Peel. Since then, I think that which may have been brought forward through our collective bargaining, there's been a couple of changes made at the central table that is supposed to start to assist a Dufferin Peel. They are good to work with to adjust, work with us on our cash flow. And sometimes we get upfront transfer payments or we get them at different times than you would normally get them. There was 1 year they gave us the one-time loan that we still have that hasn't been paid back yet. At this point, those are the helpful pieces from the ministry. We still have a long way to go. Like, we don't see a clear end to it yet, although there's been small pieces happen that are supposed to help us get there.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, just touching base on that loan that you were talking about, that's not incorporated in our almost $100 million deficit. That's an additional amount that's owed to the ministry?
Through the chair, that would have been worked into our figures. So at the end of the day, our accumulated surplus, accumulated deficit is less because we received that loan.
And sorry, just last question through you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, you know what? If you could come back to me, I'll just pass it over.
Trustee Nico?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we got a $19 million loan that helped decrease the deficit that we have, but we still owe $19 million. So in other words, we robbed Peter to pay Paul. They've done nothing.
Through the chair, like I did mention, there's been a few things, and they have been trying to make changes at the central table. But again, all of those negotiations are done now until the next round. And then they would probably come back and try to do some additional.
Is staff at liberty in open session to tell us what those little crumbs are? Because if we still have a deficit of, I thought it was less than 100 million. I thought at one point, correct me if I'm wrong, it was down to 64.
Through the chair, the accumulated deficit when we finished year end 2023-24, our accumulated deficit was about 60 million. What we're talking about is by the end of this fiscal year, if this deficit plays out, which we're projecting of 38.8, we would have to add that. So our accumulated would grow to 98.8.
And we still have no relief. We still can't put fields in some of our secondary schools, like some of the others. We have more challenges and opportunities than anything else because they're dragging their feet. And 3 boards, one of which is us, the other 2 are smaller boards, they're not doing anything to help on what we have no control over. I have no control over that debt, none. I can't sit on any negotiation committee and say, we're gonna duke it out for this, right? We can't do that. They have to do it, or they have to supply. I mean, you've heard this rant before. I'm just sick and tired of it, to be quite honest with you. This is not my problem. The ministry created this problem. Not Bruno, not Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. Our staff is on a shoestring budget for almost everything, pretty well everything. We can't spend money without making sure that, first of all, we have it, or we can pay it back. And with $68 million of anything that we sell that money has to go back to paying off the 19 million and then paying off the other portion of the 60 plus million that we have no control over. So how do I justify to my ratepayers exactly that story? Because the province of Ontario isn't helping any, other than throwing us a small bone every once in a while. But that doesn't appease me anymore. I'm tired of having to battle and saying to parents, there's no money. There's no money. When other boards that don't have the same challenge are getting things for their kids. And I'm not talking about a sports field. Yeah, sports field is a wonderful thing if you have a sports schism. If you have a secondary school that has mud, right? Anything that we can give our kids, newer computers. Like we have to beg, borrow, and steal monies from somewhere in order to accommodate some of the needs that others just get. But in our case, because the province can't do their job in negotiating it, we have to suffer. No, if you want us to bear the brunt of it, then you should pay or give us what is our debt so that we're even with you. Right now, we're not even with the province. We're 19 million in the hole, and we're in a debt situation. And again, I'll ask the question, how has it become my fault? Let me rephrase that. How does it become Dufferin Peel's fault?
Through the chair, they're very good questions. And I can share with you, we feel the same angst and stress and concern over it all the time. Dufferin Peel has actually been hit a couple of ways. One is our declining enrollment, which didn't help for the last 10 years, right? So that's put us in a very difficult spot as well. And the moratorium on school closures impacts that. So we can't deal with that. We can't move forward with that. So that becomes another issue that we deal with. It compounds everything else that we have. I can share that there's been a lot of change in the last couple of years across many school boards, and several of them are now experiencing deficit positions and moving into accumulated deficit positions. I'd say almost half of the school boards in the province. So there has to be something that changes at the ministry. They're dealing with this. They know that information, and we communicate with them all the time.
Mr. Chairman, just if I could, through you to staff. My frustration is not with our staff. I know what our staff does, but I know the limitations that you're under. Whether it's you, Julie, or the director, or the associate director, or anybody in finance, I get it. I think we all get it. What's frustrating is we didn't create this challenge, and they're not helping. They gave us 19 million, but it was a loan. That's not helping. So, you know, I mean, I get frustrated with it. I mean, Trustee Del Rosario raised it, and I said, oh, I don't want to comment on it because it boils my blood, because it's not something that I did. If I had done it, I would have said, it's my fault, I'll live with it. Okay, I think my colleagues, I can speak for my colleagues in the same boat. We didn't do this. It was imposed on us, and they're not doing anything until the next round of bargaining. But on some of the contracts that they've given out, money was no object. And I'm not debating what if the percentages were good, bad, or indifferent. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me is the overall financial health of Dufferin Peel. That is what concerns me, and I'm sure concerns my colleagues. But at the end of the day, again, you know, without repeating or with repeating it, this is not something that 11 trustees and our staff created. This is something that the ministry does not take ownership for, and that's the frustrating part for me. Because we would take ownership if we made a mistake, but they're not. And that now is affecting our kids in the sense of what they get. They get a great education. I mean, I go into the schools and I talk to parents, we all talk to parents, and they say, you know, yeah, we think that, but we would like. Well, you know, can't get it because we're $64 million in the hole. And at the end of this year, we're gonna be 99 or 98.6, not 100, but 99, 98.6. And again, I get your frustration. And I'm sure the director boils in her blood too, that they're not doing anything to help us. Because we're doing everything to help them, help us, but it doesn't seem to be coming back to us in a financial perspective. Because we've talked about this forever and a day and we're still talking about it. So if staff can, well, I mean, the government is closed for the next month. So until the end of the month, and that may or may not be a priority. Maybe we should have made it a priority with the candidates in our area, all of them, right? That maybe is hindsight, but at the end of the day, I appreciate what and how staff is handling it, but you said it yourself, Julie, the stress of it doesn't help people either. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. I have Trustee Mario Pascucci. Take over that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll pass. The point was covered quite well by Trustee Unica.
Sean Xavier, followed by Trustee Rahim, Student Trustee Rahim Bhai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we were talking about how we sold properties. Any property we sold, has that money already gone to the deficit or the loan?
Through the chair, we are in the process of selling 2 properties. They haven't quite closed, hasn't been completed yet. But when they are completed, those funds will come in as proceeds of disposition and be used to reduce the in-year debt position of the board.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Student Trustee Rahim Bhai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to staff. After listening to Trustee Anika, I remembered a Twitter post I saw earlier today from the city of Mississauga. They're starting their hashtag Mississauga Matters campaign in light of the provincial election that's coming up, and they're, I guess, just advertising what priorities the city has and the fact that some of them aren't being met by the current provincial government. So in listening to his point, I think there might be some value in Dufferin Peel, probably not sure how feasible this is, but starting a similar campaign, reminding these candidates and premier hopefuls that Dufferin Peel also matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we move to section G, reports from committee administration requiring action, 2025-26 budget development process. Executive Superintendent Cheripack.
Thank you. Through the chair, it is that time of year when we bring forward our annual planning for budget development for 2025-2026 year. We do have a board policy on the annual budget development process that would guide us through this. And what I will point out this year that's slightly different is the call of the provincial election, which puts the government in a position of, they call it drop the writ, but they don't do anything until after the election. And so it could delay a little bit of our process with regards to receiving the core ed information because they won't be able to make those decisions until they come back after the election. Hopefully it doesn't delay too much, but in the meantime, there is lots of work that we do on the other side. We look through, we review, we calculate, we look at challenges, we look at impact, and we can almost go through and build an expenditure budget. We don't need to know the revenue side until it comes through. So a lot of that work will be done now. Other things we do to keep our Catholic stakeholders informed and the Board of Trustees is we bring the information to our website. So we have a budget website page that we post everything onto. We share information about the meetings that are coming, and any reports get posted there as well. And if I can draw your attention to the chart on page 52, there's a few things that will take place over the next few months. We've already scheduled dates in for an information session with the Board of Trustees on April 8th. We will be presenting to the Special Education Advisory Committee on April 23rd. And we have already scheduled the public budget information session, which is a live webcast that we engage in, and that is on April 24th and this information has been shared with our schools so that they were able to go ahead and plan Catholic School Council meetings and be able to use that evening for those meetings. The plan is to bring forward reports to ANF and be able to bring forward a proposed budget to ANF in June. And then, which, depending on how it's received, go forward to the Board of Trustees, and the filing date with the ministry is always the end of June. I think that's what I wanted to point out at this time. One more thing, sorry, and I know it came up previously. This is the 5th budget we will be presenting under the multi-year financial recovery plan. What that allows is for the board to bring forward a deficit budget and allow it to be approved. Thank you. That's a report. I'll take any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent Sheripako. Do you have any questions? Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to my distant past at this point. When, and through you to staff, and thank you very much for what you've done, but and this is just a comment, actually, more than anything else. 100 years ago, when I was first on the board, there was a gentleman by the name of Art Steffler. And when we couldn't balance our budgets at that time because we had our own issues, he invited the board to come in, the minister to come in and take a look and see where they can do things. It was a very interesting reaction by the ministry, but I think we were put in a position as a community, and the fact of the matter is that we're, as Bruno was saying earlier, we're not doing the best we can offer. We can't offer the best to our students, which are entitled to the best, at least to what other communities have. So by way of commentary, I'm just very, very disappointed with ministry. So that leads me to the question, Madam Director. Question I have to ask, I don't know if it's possible, but is there any way we can meet with the other two boards and see what they're doing? I know we have a report, verbal report from staff. The other two boards that are have the same ramifications of their budgets, is it, number one, worth to meet with them? And second, number two, can we meet with them?
Through the chair, I would say that the Dufferin Peel situation is a unique situation in terms of the deficit. But I had also given a heads up to one of the ministry staff that's key in knowing what our situation is. When I was at Code a couple of weeks ago, and had indicated that it's time to meet again, because for all of the reasons that have been said here today, it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and the pressures are significant. And so he is expecting a reach out. We just want to make sure that we've gathered up all the updated information that we want to provide that individual at the ministry. But then, you know, the election was called. I'm not sure to what extent ministry staff can still be engaged. But it is our intention to hold another meeting.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, last question, if I may. We're talking about two other Catholic boards, am I correct? There's 3 total?
Through the chair, there are a few Catholic boards that I think are experiencing some challenges. I would not want to be talking about other boards in
Oh, no, of
public
course,
session,
because
but
we
there
don't have
are
information.
some other boards that do have that are undergoing financial analysis.
It begs the question, what about public school board? And I don't need to know the information now because this is an unfair question being offered at this point when. but,
Through the chair, public school boards are also experiencing deficits.
Is there a writing on the wall at this point for the ministry? Staff, thank
The
you.
chair, I can't speak for the ministry.
Staff, thank you for your balanced report. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pascucci. Yeah, no more questions. I have a recommendation for consideration. That the Administration and Finance Committee recommend Board of Trustees approve the proposed 2025-2026 budget development process. Moved by Trustee Luz del Rosario. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Next item on the agenda is a 2025-26 school year calendar. Superintendent Raddick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hope everyone's doing well. Through the chair, I bring forward the attached report regarding the 2025-2026 school year calendar to the Board of Trustees for your consideration. The report's found on pages 53 to 57 in your agenda. In keeping with the ministry directive, the various groups within the committee, as found in the report, consulted and developed a calendar in conjunction with our coterminous boards. Our goal was to align our elementary and secondary PE days so that they are happening at the same time. Additionally, aligning PA days with PEAL, since many of our families have students enrolled in both school boards, in an effort to achieve transportation efficiencies. As a result of that collaboration, all our PA days are aligned with our coterminous board, with the exception of one PA day at the end of the school year. That's the end of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions for Superintendent Raddick? Seeing none, there's a recommendation.
Oh, there's one.
Mr. Chairman, in looking at this report, or the calendar dates, one of the questions that parents, I won't say consistently ask, but they ask quite often, why is a PA day always on a Monday or a Friday? Usually a Monday. And my response to them was, well, it could be any day of the week. We choose to have it on a Monday to accommodate you. And they look at me like I have two heads. What do you mean to accommodate me? I have to take a day off. Yeah, but would you rather take a day off on a Wednesday or a Monday or a Friday or whatever date that is, to extend it into a 3-day weekend for you if you have to stay home or somebody has to stay home? Do we do anything to educate our parents on why we do that? Because it comes up, it doesn't come up as often as my comment would, but it comes up often enough. Or do we just leave it as is?
Through the chair, I can confirm that it's, in fact, the parents' recommendations that sit on school year calendar, that their preference is to have it on a Monday or a Friday. But to your question around, is there anything that we can do to ensure that the parents understand that this is really in response to what the representative on the committees are suggesting? Perhaps maybe when we get approval for this year's calendar and we're ready to share it with the system, we can also share that information.
And Mr. Chairman, through you to Director Mazzarato, it would be my intent to share the pre-approved calendar, but explain to them exactly that. Because, we try to always to educate our parents on why certain things are done in Dufferin Peel or in I always refer to it as our school board. It's not Bruno's school board, it's not your school board, it's our school board, right? And so it kind of takes the edge off some of the conversations sometime when you educate them and they know and and then they can tell somebody, say, oh yeah, I had to take a Monday off. Well, you know why they take a Monday off? They become educated on it and it helps in the conversation. So yeah, if we could do something like that, then that would be most appreciated.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation for consideration. The Administration and Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees that the 2025-2026 school year calendar be approved for submission to the Ministry of Education. I have a mover, moved by Trustee Bruno Enika. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carry. We have no notices of motion. Come to section I, which is questions asked by trustees. Trustee Mario Pascucci, followed by Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer this comment, if I may, through the chair. I'd like to take a moment to address my approach last week to students, Trustee Rahim, during last week's board meeting. Let me first say that I regret interrupting student Trustee White while he had the floor and for the disrespectful tone that I used. I should have allowed him to finish and requested to speak through the proper process. My concern was the use of the collective terms of we and ourselves in student trustees White's remarks. I speak for myself. He is fully entitled to his opinion, and I respect that. I simply wanted to clarify that he does not speak for me, and I objected to the implication that my vote is in favor of the flag policy amendment suggested that I support hate and bullying practice behavior. Fact of the matter is nothing could be further from the truth. Mr. Chairman, I offer my apologies.
Thank you, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
Sorry, the mic wouldn't work. Through you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to take a moment to address my approach to student trustee Bailey Klein during last week's board meeting. Mr. Chairman, I offer my apology to student trustee Klein, sorry, and to the Board of Trustees for how I addressed student trustee Bailey Klein when seeking clarification as it pertained to the observation dates for the Every Child Matter flag and Indigenous flags to be flown on borough property. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stefano Pascucci. Trustee Luz Del Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question about the Our Lady Ascension of Our Lord. I just want to have an update on how it's coming along with when it's going to be built. I'm looking forward to have it in September, but I haven't heard anything. So I do want to get an update. I think all the trustees are eager to have this wonderful field finally be ready for our students. Through the chair.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, the city has tendered and has a contractor in place, and they're actually expecting to mobilize the work to begin anytime if the weather can be more favorable. You will see machinery and everything else on site. Right now, as of the end of the year, beginning of this year, their schedule is for October 25th of this year for substantial completion of that project. So we're looking at that, and hopefully they can speed that up. And yeah, but there will be a field there, that's for sure. But the city is working on that.
Chair, could I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
So right now, there's no equipment there. They have not dig or anything yet. I know it's winter, but is there a plan on when they're going to start to dig? Through the chair?
Well, through the chair, they're expecting that work to begin anytime, probably in March, when the weather is a bit better and they can mobilize. And actually, right now, their winter, to dig through the ground is frozen, et cetera, et cetera. But their plan is to us is that they're expecting that field to be completed October 25th.
All right, thank you. Through the chair, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I forgot to ask this. forgot to send it to you. I just thought about it driving in. With the election coming, the second school that we are selling, it's under the ministry right now, right? The St. Gertrude. We had approved it and the minister, we had to send it to the ministry because the process has changed. So where does it stand now, the sale of St. Gertrude?
So through the chair, we continue to be in negotiations. I think that's more of a in-camera question
Okay,
that I could provide a brief update in camera, if
Okay.
that's acceptable to trustees.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Del Rosario. We have Trustee Bruno Inica.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. Some of the schools that are being used are smaller schools with no parking spaces, just barely enough for the staff. Barely enough for the staff. And now you're having, not but the province wants to create havoc in a small parking lot. And teachers are afraid to go out to go get something because when they come back, they're not going to have a parking spot. Is that something that there are conversations at all with the ministry? Because it creates for me, it creates a safety issue for the people walking in and out. And I know that our staff don't put the kids out in the parking lot. So I'm not going to say, but it's from a parking perspective. There isn't any parking in some of those smaller schools. St. Catherine of Siena, I don't know. I looked at the list. I didn't look for St. Catherine of Siena. St. Catherine of Siena has St. Catherine of Siena Church parking that they can park at. It's huge, like 200 parking spaces. But other schools that are smaller schools, for the sake of an argument, a school similar to a St. Gerard that has no parking, or St. Jerome for that matter, is a school that people go in and vote and come out. Yeah, they're in and out, but they're creating a parking challenge for staff. Is that ever considered?
Well, through the chair, with the returning officers and Elections Ontario and even the federal government, we certainly bring up things like that. We also talk about the dates that are selected, and sometimes that's not up to us or the returning officers. The premier or the prime minister, they would set the dates for these things. And but our sites are selected by Elections Ontario, and we're kind of at their mercy, if you will. We push back when it comes to some site selections in particular, but that's something that I'll raise again with the returning officers. But I'll make a note for their next election call that we don't want schools that don't have any parking available. Like, it just creates more of an issue. It creates more of an issue for the school, obviously, and the community, especially when it's a school day instead of a PA day. I think the last election was on a PA day, and which was a lot better, but still, yes.
Yeah, the next election after this one is going to be March or April.
Well,
and not soon enough, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Inica. To this point, Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
Thank you very much. And just to the point of Trustee Bruno Inica, is it possible for us to ensure that our staff have parking in the morning? Because I know that elections, the individuals who work in elections will show up earlier, possibly than staff. And then if it is a small staff parking lot, then our staff have to park on the street. So can we put up pylons and make sure that our own staff have parking before anybody else?
Through the chair, yes, I'll advise our permits officer to contact the specific schools that are on the list and the school administrator and actually have that arrangement made.
Appreciate it. Also, I don't know if it's for us to do or for Elections Ontario to do, but does the city of Mississauga get contacted to ensure that if anybody does have to park on the street, whatever reason, that there is no ticketing for a certain period of time? Obviously, in the morning, first thing in the morning, at lunch and at dinner, people are trying to vote.
Well, through the chair, we can make contact and remind them about that.
Yeah, I don't
particular
think,
specific-
through you, Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's our problem to do.
No,
I think that's Elections Ontario, but my main goal is to ensure that our staff have parking and everybody else gets a second. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Pucci. Yeah, no more questions. Sorry, see Mario Pascucci.
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, today I voted, believe it or not. They actually had it all open, but the thinking is that it's not just the schools that are affected. This was a little industrial unit on Dundas and Tompkin Road. So I know we have nothing to do with with individual units. The fact of the matter is that where I'm coming with this is that there are some voting points already set up. So it might be something more urgent than we really think it might be. Mind you, recognizing the elections in 3 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions? Seeing none, Director Mazzarato would like to make an announcement.
Thank you. And through the chair, I wanted to welcome for the first meeting, albeit a committee meeting, is Peter Cusimano, who is Superintendent of Mississauga West. So congratulations, Peter, and welcome. And our only regret is that the committee this evening took pity on you and had a very short meeting, and you weren't able to experience what we all experience is long meetings, but welcome, Peter.
The best committee, Peter. It's by far the best.
Okay, you have no declared interest items. Can I have someone move to in camera? Trustee Sean Xavier. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we'll do a 5-minute break. 8:30, okay, 6.5-minute break.
There's a problem with it upside down.
Welcome back to the open session from the in-camera session. Now I'll have Acting Vice Chair Trustee Mario Pascucci to report.
As a report, we had questions, and what did we say? We had questions of an in-camera nature and realty issue. You wanna-
And the approval of the minutes of the,
Approval of the minutes. That's it.
of the in-camera session of the Administration and Finance Committee meeting of November 12th, 2024.
Done. Any questions? None.
Do we need someone to approve that? Approved by Trustee Stefano Pascucci. All in favor? Opposed? Can I have someone to adjourn the meeting?
I think we should talk to Alicia.
Trustee Anisha Thomas, would you like to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed?